all of you in virtual world and all of you on my screen to the July regular meeting of the Maritime Advisory Board of the City of Annapolis. As I usually do, I'll go around my screen and identify who is on the screen, and then we'll proceed with the agenda. I have Andy Fagley, who's a member of the board. I'm Terry Lomax, the chair and member of the board. We have Ross Arnett, alderperson from Ward 8 and ex officio member of the board. We have Guy Caron, a liveaboard who has been active in the liveaboard task force group. Mike Tomasini, vice chair, member of the board. Debbie Goslin, former member of the board, who has an active interest in our affairs, as well as has a lot of historical knowledge to bring to the table. Jake Iverson from Watermark, a regular attendee. Tom Weaver, member of the board. Alan Miller, member of the board. Rick Nelson, member of the board. Rita Wildy, member of the board. We have a lot of members of the board tonight. We have Josh from the City of Annapolis TV station. Kimberly Consoli, our court reporter, or our reporter. Tim Jacobs. Tim, you with the Harbor Master's office?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Good evening.
I got it right. And Tyler Northfield, also the acting Harbor Master, is with us tonight. And with that, I will kick this off with a approval of the minutes from the June meeting. I have circulated a copy to everybody. Hopefully you had an opportunity to look at it. And we'll start with, is there a motion to accept the June minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Fagley has moved. Mr. Tomasini has seconded. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Any recommended changes or corrections? Hearing none. All in favor of adoption of the June minutes, raise your hand so Kimberly can see it.
Aye.
Any opposed? Kimberly, nobody's opposed. And we will move on to the regular old business. Mr. Trogdon was not here. He provided me, and I circulated a very brief summary of what happened at the June meeting. It was not particularly spectacular. Nothing seemed to affect Eastport, or not Eastport, but the city and the city Maritime. So we can move on. Everybody's just read that. I will cover the July meeting to the extent that there is one. Hope had said she was not going to be with us this evening. She had two or three other meetings to cover. So we'll pass on the eco gardening, and there's no update on the equitable public water access plan, except as it might relate to the safe harbors legislation that's we do have before us. We also, thank you, Tyler has provided us the Harbor Master's report in adequate time to look at it. And there is I have a couple of things. I circulated it, so everybody should have a copy. I have a couple of questions for Tyler. The task force to study marine vessels, you said there's a 24-page report that's been drafted and that's going to be circulated. Is there a time frame for ultimately distributing that report or making that report public?
Yes, I can address that immediately tomorrow.
Oh,
if everything goes well, I had an exchange with Tim today, and I'm waiting for one final approval from one individual, and it will do a couple of things. It's going to go public. Tim can give you the details. And number two, we are sending it to the departments of the city that are impacted, and we're going to get their input. That is the last piece that we need to complete our report. We have a preliminary appendix or addendum in regards to the public website responses, which was quite interesting. And we've added a way forward type section at the end that came out of our meeting from last week, Wednesday. And so we had hoped to have it all that done quickly last week, but it was a little more intense than planned last Wednesday. So we try to incorporate the input from everyone. So I believe it will be public. I'll let Tim specify how that goes. And my understanding from Jacqueline and probably Ross as well, that in the month of September, there's a planned public working session. Forgive me if I'm not using the right terminology. And so that's the purpose of making all this public. Once we get the results from the departments back, we hope by the end of the month, we'll make the report pretty much final and off we go. And I'll send you a copy, Terry. Feel free
Okay.
to then pass it along.
That'd be great. Tim, anything you want to add?
Yeah, first let me apologize. My dogs are in full wrestling match mode here. But the report will go into or onto, I should say, our task force webpage. As soon as Guy approves me doing so, I just don't want to put anything out there ahead of time. But it sounds like tomorrow we'll be able to put that onto the city page. You'll also find all of our minutes and reports that we've done to date on that page.
All right. That sounds very thorough, and I look forward to seeing it, and I'll certainly circulate it to everybody on the board once I receive it in whatever form it comes out.
Terry, if I just may, is there anything else you have for me? I have a 7:30 appointment, so I wanted to ask if anybody had anything for me. Otherwise, I will gently depart this evening. It's been a couple busy nights. So
No, thank you for taking on this task, and it sounds like it was an enormous amount of work, and we appreciate that.
a lot of people, very good people were involved, including people on your committee, a lot of very caring people, and I appreciate all the help I got. So
All right, have a good evening.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Tyler, the other question, next question I had was, you indicated that as of July 14th, there were 102 charter bookings. How does that stack up with 2024? Are we behind, ahead, or about the same?
We're about the same, right on schedule, really.
Okay. And I take it from that the work that's been ongoing on city dock has not had a noticeable impact, at least, or a significant impact on charter bookings.
Not so much charters. We're definitely seeing a decrease in overnight stays, especially on the bulkhead, since we don't have any power right now. So,
I'm sorry, there's lack of power.
correct. There's no power on the bulkhead on Dock Street currently. So
Right. Yeah.
that's we're lacking the big boats, that kind of thing.
And I saw we had talked about this the last time, but that there's now working heads and showers for customers, and you're looking on washers and dryers.
Correct. Yep, that's my plan. Hopefully by the end of the month, we'll get laundry up and running.
The last-
Tyler, I shared that information you gave to me, and I got some positive response out of that, and so hopefully you'll get a bit of business out of that too.
Great, thank you.
Are there plans in the works, Tyler, to restore power to the pedestals on Dock Street on the bulkhead?
So I was told by the director of public works that hopefully by spring of next year will the power be.
But nothing immediate.
Yeah, nothing immediate. I do have one spot on the bulkhead I have power, but I can only accommodate one boat there. So
And what is I think the layout was from last time, but is there any update on reconfiguration of the St. Mary's mooring field?
St. Mary's that's basically the final layout of it. Still working on the upper portion of Spot Creek. Just trying to configure it so everything flows correctly and doesn't block traffic.
And last but not least, for this paddlecraft rack pilot program. And I see there's a fee for city residents, but so I assume it's just open on a first come, first served basis in terms of people signing up for an annual spot.
Correct. We thought we would have a better turnout with this, but that's not the case here. Hopefully next year it'll pick up. We were a little late to the game.
All right, anybody else have any questions or comments for Tyler or Tim?
On the potential for additional mooring balls up in Spa Creek, I had seen an email circulated, I think it was late May, maybe early June. How imminent is that? Is that something that's probably not until next season? Is it something that has to go through a couple of other channels, or?
I'm hoping to get everything permitted this winter. So hopefully by spring we can start installing.
Got it. And does that involve state and federal, or is this just city?
State, federal, and city. Yep.
Got it. All right.
Let's jump ahead a minute. Rick, was there anything to add to the report on I have it listed as the Houseboat Task Force Marina Slip Inventory line item than what has already been talked about? You're muted.
The best way to listen to me. I will say that the task force is very explicit that it's about house barges and not house boats. And I think you'll see that distinction come out in the report. So, and I guess I could share more, but I think I'd rather let Guy kind of post the report because I'm not sure I'm not sure that I should be sharing more broadly what's
I wasn't
in
trying
the
to get you
draft.
to share more broadly. I just want to make
Yep.
sure I can cross that item off.
Yes, you can indeed cross that item off.
That was, I should have said that up front and
Yeah.
we just saved 5 minutes, but
Yeah, and well, also I shouldn't. It's not as though it's going to be earth shattering. So I don't want to build people's anticipation, but I do think it's a good report and a good foundation for discussion. So.
all right. All right, I'm gonna come back to the R4 zoning and the harbor line amendment here in a minute, but I just want to get a couple of these other items. Mike, is there any update on the small business work group?
That would be a negative. No, there hasn't been much traction out of it, and it was scheduled for, or at least being preliminary scheduled for a city council work session that didn't happen because of the timing. There was no chance that this council was going to be able to act on it based on the committees and things that it would have to get through for approval. So I'm guessing we'll see it come around back in November, December timeframe.
I guess it would probably be December. Ross, when does the new council get sworn in? Isn't it the 1st of December?
Yes, the second Monday of December.
Okay. So basically, there's
And
nothing.
and I suspect they'll be quite busy getting to know each other. There's going to be a half turnover of the council, including a new mayor. So I'm not sure when they'll get to picking up old threads and reintroducing legislation that Sonny died.
Right. And last but not least, before we go back to 09-25 and 021-25, Tyler basically in his report gave us the current update on the city dock in terms of the facilities for visiting boaters, et cetera. I know we had talked about in the last meeting the issue about the lack of power, but it's just one of those things that are, we're going to have to put up with due to the infrastructure aspect of it. But let's turn back to we'll just take 09-25. I've sent everybody a copy of 09-25, and that is the maritime uses in the R4 zone. as Ross and I and Phil Dales, who represents Watergate, met, and then we had some additional exchanges in terms of tweaking the proposed legislation, and in particular, clarifying couple of the aspects about the legislation. I don't have a copy. That amendment making those tweaks is not before us. And Ross, you can, and also, by the way, the Planning Commission also weighed in with a change or recommended amendment, and Alderman Savage had a recommended amendment. And so, Ross, maybe you can fill us in on where we are with those amendments. We don't have them before us, and I'll defer to the board as to whether they want to take it up now or whether we want to see the written amendments first.
So I'll just give you a status report. You're correct. The Planning Commission weighed in on it. They had a recommendation to delete charter boat services and related activities. I'm not going to support that. They wanted to add stand-up paddleboard and kayak rentals. I think that's a good clarifying addition. And then they want, and we have, I think you and I, Terry, talked about it, but they want to add that this does not include houseboats, house barges, or vessels, which may otherwise be interpreted to mean houseboats or house barges. Phil agreed to that going into the legislation. So there are going to be, hopefully tomorrow or maybe the next day, all of these amendments will be formalized and posted on the city website for the July 23rd meeting of the Rules and City Government Committee. That that recommendation may or may not be ready to go to the council meeting on the 28th, and depending upon what this body recommends tonight, as far as your feelings on this, it may have to wait till the first meeting in September.
And for the board's benefit, I will share that, as the board may well have seen before, there is a resolution that is out there, right, that has been adopted already, which basically puts any enforcement action on hold while this legislation is pending. And so there is not necessarily a strong pressure to rush this legislation through, because it's status quo ante for now, at least. And Ross was telling me, I believe, and I didn't go back and look at that resolution, but that it probably lasts through the end of the year at least. So to take it up in September would be certainly my preference once we see the actual amendments. I've discussed the amendment that Ross and I and Phil Dales talked about, but I've not seen that finalized. I will defer to the rest of the board as to whether or not we want to take up any recommendation at the moment or not. And is there anyone that is strongly in favor of taking up the legislation and trying to make a recommendation tonight, or do we wish to defer it until we get the formal amendments, which we can then circulate and take up at our September meeting, or we can take it up in advance if that becomes critically necessary, although I don't anticipate that. Yes, Rita.
Personally, I would like to wait until we have everything before us that we can compare and consider. So I would like to wait. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Mike?
What do we think the timing is on a final vote from the council?
Once we get the recommendation from you, and I think you're wise to wait, I don't think there's a rush. That will follow the recommendation from Rules Committee and It's also, yeah, Rules Committee. So we're the two outstanding bodies, Rules and the MAB. And once those are submitted, it'll go on either the first or second council meeting in September for final vote.
Got it.
And
Because our next meeting isn't until September 15th.
it's actually September 16th. I just pulled it up.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
so
that would be in time for the September 23rd council meeting.
22nd council meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 22nd. That's a Monday. Yep. The 22nd council meeting. So that would work out.
So I know that Mr. Dales is anxious, but we gave him that protection from the resolution, which I'm trying to find right now. Yeah, R 25 and come on, give me it. While I'm looking for this, let me tell you something that's not on your agenda, but I think is pretty good news from perspective of many people. The 90 slip marina proposal has been withdrawn. Let's see. Yeah.
Ross, when you say withdrawn, I know the meeting was canceled, but I mean, there wasn't anything to really withdraw, right?
Well, there were things that they were showing, diagrams and plans and all of that sort of thing. And I sat down with Mike Keenan and John Bruno and saw it, and others did. But the person who was really driving it was Gavin, and his reasons were he thought it would be good for downtown business. That's conjecture, but let's see. Oh, well, the resolution, and this is unfortunate, we'll have to extend it, ends as of August 31st, 2025. So we'll have to do a new resolution to extend the waiver.
Okay.
The mayor really wanted to sign a lease, and I've never really been able to figure out what the lease is for. Is it for the end of city dock where the T docks would start from, or what? Is it lease of city? But even more important, we had no information about what the financials were, and I think any of the people from the harbor master's office can tell you there were legions and legions of problems, even federal problems. Certainly, Army Corps of Engineer problems, DNR problems, MDE problems. It was not something that was going to go through with any speed whatsoever, just on the outside processes. Tyler, maybe you or Tim want to speak to it, but I'm relieved that it's gone. I don't think in my discussions with the people that are likely to be on the next city council, it had a lot of warm fuzzies going from it. And I know race committee for Wednesday nights can breathe a sigh of relief.
Well, I know, I saw Alderman Huntley's Facebook page, which he summed up very succinctly as being a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, and that's right, affecting his ward. So, and I can't imagine that doing anything like that would certainly be a much greater impediment to the view cone than the harbor master's office sitting off to the side, for sure.
Yep.
Particularly with the size of boats they're talking about. So stay vigilant, but and stay tuned, but don't lose sleep at night.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely gone. Gavin was pretty unequivocal when he talked to us about it after the city council meeting. And so I'm hoping there's a lot of things that want to get done before the end of the term run out of time. that's a whole different set of issues, having to do with ADUs and duplexes and whatever. So anyway, I will have to get something drafted to maybe we can get something on the agenda for the city council meeting on the 28th to extend the resolution to the end of the year to make sure we have time to get this.
That sounds like the logical path to take, and then we will take it up. We'll obviously we'll have the formal amendments, and we'll take it up at our September meeting and be able to report out, the next day. So if it wants to go on the September 22nd agenda, that's fine too.
Right.
All right.
Gary, just real quick, I'm just wondering from Ross on the Nautilus Point thing. The marina at Nautilus Point, for as long as I can remember, has been operating as a commercial marina. Were they approved as you can only have a slip in the marina if you were a resident of the apartment complex?
I'm not sure they were approved, period, but that marina went in with the construction of Nautilus Point, which was what, in the 60s,
Right.
Right.
68 or something. It was
I can give a little bit of more background on that. Before the two owners previous, the city had raised questions about the fact that they were leasing slips to non-residents.
Right.
But they at that time they did not have stand-up paddle boards. They didn't have the tiki bar, et cetera, et cetera. These were just leases to outside residents, but private boats.
Myself included. That's why I'm wondering.
Well, and so in looking at that, and I did look at it in some detail, as Ross pointed out, those slips went in prior to the R4 zoning. They went in, and well, they might be not prior to the R4 zoning, but they went in the 60s. And it appears that when the zoning was changed, whatever was there at the time, which may or may not have been leasing to non-residents, would have been grandfathered in. And the owners were in the process of researching how far back, non-residents were leasing to see just what they were grandfathered or not grandfathered. And then that sort of just got dropped. And now we're dealing with the true commercial aspect of it, which is the rest of it. But you're right that they were leasing to non-residents, I mean non-residents of Watergate, not non-residents of the city, for some period of time prior to 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, much prior to them.
Yeah.
No,
It was a great deal too.
yeah, it is. I had a Cal 33 there many years ago. So anyway, do you want to move on to 02125?
021. We talked about 021. This is the reconfiguration at Safe Harbors that comes out of the city's reconstruction of the street end at the end of 6th Street. And we looked at it and went back to the engineer and confirmed where the current harbor lines are. There's a drawing that's attached to 02125 that shows the harbor line, which basically runs straight down along the ends of just outside the ends of the current piers or finger piers that stick out from a dock, stick out towards the 6th Street fairway. And there's two small slips that are right up towards the bulkhead that are accessible off of a dock that are going to be essentially taken away as a result of putting in the floating dock at the end of 6th Street. And as was explained at the last meeting, most of that comes about by the fact that there is the requirement for a ADA accessible ramp down to that floating dock because it is public access. And that ADA accessible ramp actually has to crisscross. It comes down from one side, halfway down, turns, and then goes down the other half, and which then increases the size of the floating dock and pushes us out into that fairway, and therefore basically blocks those two slips. The Mears and the city have discussed the fact that there is another area of the Mears Marina over on the diagonally over on the other corner where the harbor line, for whatever reason, makes an angle jut in instead of a straight line from whatever, these aren't labeled. That would be A, B, from C dock over to the outer part of D dock.
Right.
And if you look at the drawing that everybody has, the proposed harbor line is to simply connect those 2 points, which currently, just because of the configuration of where that indentation is not an area of anchorage. It's not an area of not an area of it's useful in the sense that yes, you can drive a boat through there, but it's not an access to or from Back Creek. It's not an access to or from even to the foot of round to corner to the end of 4th Street. And the proposal is to basically swap those small slips, which are being impacted by the floating dock, and correcting the harbor line that makes this odd little jog in now. And that is what 02125 does. As I understand it, the port wardens deferred any decision on it. I don't know if it's deferred it because they wanted to hear our opinion on it or what, but it is up before us to make a recommendation as to recommending approval of that harbor line amendment. If you haven't looked at the drawing, I think it's important to look at the drawing just to see where in the red dotted line where the harbor line is. Actually, you know what? I think if I can do this, maybe. Let me see.
You have both drawings, Terry?
I'm looking right now. I have 02521, and I'm looking at it, but I don't know that I have I don't know that I didn't see that I had the drawing to be able to share it. Can you share it, Ross?
Uh,
I
I mean, I would have to.
Oh,
pull
wait a
up
minute,
the
wait a minute.
others.
I think this is it here. Maybe I do have it.
So you have the one in color?
I do. So let me see if I can do this.
Do you have the one behind that that's in black and white? Because the two are not the same.
I have one that is in color,
Right?
and I have one that's an aerial.
Yeah.
And those are the only two that I have.
Well, so with the
Oh, let me do this
share it, and then
let
I'll
me-
give you background.
let me see if I can. Let me see if I can share. No. So, Josh, how do I share this?
You should have a share screen option.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I do it from my share screen.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, gotcha. All right. So Ross, what I have is this aerial, or sort of its aerial slash drawing, and then I have this drawing here.
Right.
So to go back to what we were just discussing, if I can now get this to somehow expand a little bit. Well, so where my cursor is 6th Street. And and this red line here is the existing harbor line that connects on and then becomes the blue line, which is is the red line, which jogs in, makes this funny jog in, and then wraps around on the 4th Street side actually looks like it goes this way.
Mary, if you can do it, this is their proposed changes. If you can go back to the aerial photo, that one, yeah.
Okay,
These are the existing structures. That one you're looking at is what they want to submit when they go to the port warden. So you can see they're doing some significant reconfiguration in the marina on that black and white one. I don't think that's relevant to the legislation. That's their attorney's wish list. So this is the one to look at. So the background is, as you could see, if you can flip down to the 6th Street view there, that the piers for Safe Harbor were extending into the city's lateral lines, and the boats were extending out beyond the pilings at the end of the slips. So they were well into the cities, and the code requires that you be 5 feet within the lateral line. So all of these slips along here, particularly the 3 boats that you can see sort of in the center, are in violation. However, when it went to the port wardens approved the port wardens initially approved the floating pier. Then when it went to the port wardens asked, why are we getting this now? Which I think is a legitimate question. However, the city code requires when you're doing a change to your harbor line that it be reviewed by the port wardens, the harbor master through the MAB, and then go to the council for review. So they were very confused. Well, the thing that made it worse is this was passed on first reader Monday of the last city council, not the one just last week, but it was passed on Monday and put on the port warden's agenda on Wednesday. 2-day turnaround, which normally you would say, hey, fantastic, city finally has its act together. The only problem is they didn't bother to tell me, so I wasn't at the port warden. I tried to go to him, but I had Tecumseh was on there. I had a conflict of interest there, and I said, I'm just going to take a break. As it happens, I went out to dinner with my sister. So the port wardens, with guidance from Carrie Berger, postponed their hearing until their next hearing, which is coming up later this month, when I can be there to explain to them. Now, behind all of this, my personal philosophy is anytime I think we can add slips within the code, that's a good thing. I think, more slips we have in the city. And it is true, when you look at this picture, that certainly the first 3 or 4 slips are very much impaired by being inside the city's lateral line, but will be affected because the floating dock throws out so far from the end of the street. So I was approached by Carrie Berger, the city attorney, who had been approached by Alan Hyatt, one of the attorneys for Safe Harbor, and Alan was going to ask for a judicial review of the port warden's decision on the floating dock. But he said if the alderman would consider making some other, giving us some help elsewhere in the marina, we'll postpone that request for the judicial review. Now, I don't think the judicial review will lead anywhere. The port wardens, I was at that meeting. They sometimes are a little confused, but they acted totally according to code, and Carrie Berger made sure that they did that. But ignoring the threat of the judicial review, I said, yeah, I want to work. If there's a way we can make this good, let's trot it out. So then if you flip up to where they're talking about,
Well, Ross, before we go up there,
yeah.
part of there seems to be two aspects to the change. One is if you look at this red line here, it doesn't look like it's exactly a right angle coming off of here. It kind of angles in. And I believe one of the proposals is to straighten that out.
Well, that's what the proposal should be. I mean, it should be with 5 feet off of their lateral line with the city's lateral line.
And
So
this is what
even this
the drawing
drawing,
shows is the 5 foot
yeah, for
setback.
there, but not out here, not out at the end, at the,
And this end is right at it.
yeah. And so it's not legal. And so that would have to be addressed. But
But
on this diagram, if you flip up to the top, they're also proposing all of these other changes here in the top section. So you see they want to extend a whole bunch of slips, once again, right out to the proposed harbor line. And I do not think, and we need to talk with harbor master staff. Terry, you and I both went out there. I did not see that this was much of an incursion. Back Creek is busy, Spa Creek is busy, all the creeks are busy, but I didn't feel that it would impinge on navigation. But obviously, what the harbor master feels is the controlling thing here, and that's what I've told Alan Hyatt and everybody else. The harbor master and the port wardens are the authority for the city in terms of navigation and where slips can go, and MAB is the advisor to the city on what's good and what's bad. So um, the there is another confusion here because you see this labored as the harbor line, but we also use harbor line to show the channel. So we were using harbor line in two different contexts. So when someone first told me, yeah, that the harbor line comes all the way into Sixth Street, well, their boundaries of their marina do come there, but the harbor line is further out in the middle of Back Creek. So we've got a confusion in terms here that I've already talked to the city attorney. We need to get that straightened out. In fact, we need to get an official new harbor line. Right now, the code says both you can't be within a certain distance of the harbor line that's marking the channel, or you can't be more than 25 feet out from the shoreline in the body of water. So you can have 25 feet coming out from each shore, but 50 feet in the middle has to be reserved for navigation. So there's other underlying complications going on here. But the bottom line is the sentiment from my part on this, same way I helped Marcellus Butler and Carty Templeton with their harbor lines. If we can ease the situation for the marina operator, make their business better, and we can provide more slips, I'm generally in favor of doing that as the alderman from the ward. I think that may change with the next alderman. I don't know. But anyway, so that's the underlying aspects of it. The port wardens will take this up again, and they'll actually take it up twice. They'll take it up again as advisory on the legislation itself, and then they will take it up a second time when there's an actual application. And I suspect the actual application will look a lot like this black and white drawing, which again, we've noted isn't exactly correct either because you have to be 5 foot off of the boundaries for your riparian rights, which is what I prefer to call. So
And
the status is this had a public hearing last night at City Council. Only one person spoke. That was an attorney for Safe Harbor. I don't think this is raising any particular interest at all. Even though Alderman Savage is across the creek, on Back Creek. He doesn't seem to be particularly exercised about this, and that's fine. I mean, I think this is largely a Ward 8 maritime issue, WME, Rob Savage's WMI, as we all know. So anyway, that's the status of this. I think the drawings are not yet accurate. Certainly this penciled, the black and white drawing, it's still not showing them conforming with the code. And then I think we need to hear from the harbor master. I actually was going to ask to go out with him or somebody ride in the harbor master boat and look at it. I was out on a Saturday, which is a very busy day. It was a Saturday in May, and it didn't bother me, but I'm not a professional. I'm just a boater. So I think that hearing from the thoughts of our colleagues on the harbor masters going to be pretty critical as to where this legislation goes.
So what I'm hearing, and then I'll open it up to further discussion, is that number one, the drawing, this black and white drawing that we have in front of us is not ready for prime time.
That's my feeling.
All right. And the second thing that I sort of take away from this is that the proposal is for the configuration is if this blue line that I'm showing on the screen now becomes the new harbor line for purposes of the marina, or the boundary, the waterway yard. I think that's the better description. This marks the boundary of their waterway yard.
Right.
That then what we would have instead of the current larger boats that tie up side tie within this or encroaching over it, depending on the size of the boat, we would have a series of 4 finger piers of increasing length to fit into this area here. And it looks like they would actually straighten out, potentially straighten out this dock and would straighten out or reconfigure this portion of D dock based on this drawing and have it more, instead of having something coming out on a diagonal.
Yeah, stay there, Terry, because what they want to do is 2 things. One, they want to get their harbor line. Go back to the, you can see that they're reconfiguring in this top area, not just out to the blue line. They want to make fewer, bigger slips. And, you know, the movement in the industry is to go to bigger monohulls and, of course, go to catamarans. And so behind all of this stuff right out at the water line, where that little hand mark is, they want to make less slips there, but make them bigger for catamarans and bigger monohulls. So they've got some things which are really port warden issues behind the scenes, but you're right. What they want to do is to put slips, piers here that will accommodate larger boats, 3 or 4, possibly 5, whenever they get to the final version of this.
And the size of these slips would indicate a slice, would indicate catamaran-ish, only because a monohull that's this wide is not going to only be that short.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not the final thing. There could be pilings in the middle of each one of these.
Right.
So there would be 6, potentially 6 monohull slips, certainly not 6 catamaran slips.
So for the purposes of our consideration is frankly not about how they configure their slip, but instead drawing the outline of the property that they can configure.
Correct.
And the modifications that are being proposed is to clean up or straighten out, however you want to call it, the line along the southern-ish, southwestern end of D dock, and to then to take out the jog up off the end, I'm sorry, at the end of, I'm sorry, of A dock and take the jog out of D dock. Those are the only two changes to the waterway yard slash harbor line that would be before us. Am I missing something?
No, I would go down to the bottom, though. I will point out that their red line on this drawing is not straight out from the lateral line. It actually comes back into the city's lateral lines going out to the channel. So there's some mischief going on in what they're proposing, but I always concluded doesn't matter worrying about that right now if we don't grant them the change in their yard, I like your term, what is it?
Waterway yard.
Waterway yard line, then a lot of this is moot, or at least not germane to the legislation.
So it seems to me that, and it's you and I having this discussion primarily, and I want everyone else to have an opportunity, but that the drawing needs to go back to the proverbial drawing board to be clarified as to precisely what is being proposed in terms of the line out to which they can extend.
Yeah, and let me be fair, in discussions with Alan, he rushed this drawing, had whoever's doing it for them, and he said this is for illustration purposes only. It's probably not going to be what they would actually submit to the harbor master. So for the harbor line discussion, it really is important to move up to the top of this page and look at where the blue line is. Yeah, on either one, it's the blue line that is the discussion of the legislation.
And well, except that there's also some discussion about what might happen down here.
Well, I think that comes when they go, that's going to be discussed when they come to the port wardens. That is not, has nothing to, only the blue line is what's relevant to the harbor line legislation.
So,
Well, of more importance to the MAB, I think, is the dialogue about whether you, as our advisors on things nautical in the water, not the slips and the dockside, whether you and the harbor master think that this is a big enough imposition into the existing navigable waterways as to be undesirable. That's the nexus of this whole legislation.
and your view, and I will confess I did the same thing by taking a boat out there and driving along there, is that it does, if they stay within the blue line, that it is not going to be an impediment to any particular navigation or accessibility, even to get into 4th Street, regardless of which side you come from. It's doing what we did at South Annapolis Yachting Center, will be connected the two dots instead of the jog in along their some of their piers. And so I don't have any particular angst about it, but let's go around and see what other comments we have. I'll leave this on share screen since there's a small area. I mean, I can see everybody. You want to, Mike, you're the first one on my screen, so you want to give us any thoughts you have?
I'll wait. Looks like Debbie's got her hand up.
Yes, Debbie.
Or what she has to say.
Just a little bit of history about the harbor lines. The harbor lines used to be 1/3 of the way across the harbor. And the reason it jogs in like that is because it follows the shoreline. And Mears was built before the harbor line concept was changed, reduced to 25% across the harbor. So Mears extends much farther out now than it would be allowed to if it was a new marina. I'm not commenting on whether the port wardens or anybody thinks it's okay for that little straightening out. I just want, for the benefit of people that haven't been dealing with harbor lines for the last 50 years to understand the history of it.
And it gets, and then it gets complicated when there's a cove or when there's
Yes.
a peninsula too.
Yeah, the lateral lines, you know, if
Yeah.
it's concave or convex,
Yeah.
it does get more complicated. But that's why that jog is there, because the shoreline actually jogged in, and the harbor line is supposed to follow the shoreline.
Next one on my screen, Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I use that corner 4 times a day. I think dumping 6 boats into the traffic could be a very big issue. You know, 3 months of the year, most of the time it's deserted. I agree with what your feeling is, that there's not a lot impingement, but it is. You have a lot of paddle boarders, you have a lot of small boats sneaking along those 2 big boats that are tied up there, and they pop out around that corner, surprise, etc. But I think if you're having big catamarans reversing or coming out in towards on a Saturday afternoon, trying to exit and enter, it's a very complicated corner. You have all the J-well boats coming out of the top corner. You've got all the traffic coming around this corner. You got a lot of paddleboard. That's dumping 6 boats, relatively big ones, pulling any of them out into that fairway. I think it's quite an impingement.
Frida.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say big appreciation to Tyler for a very thoughtful and insightful staff report. I learned a lot, and I'm with Tom. I fail to see what the benefit to Annapolis boaters is. If this were to pass, I can see benefit to the to Safe Harbor, but what's the benefit to Annapolis boaters? And visibility issues, did I read correctly that this could allow a 100-foot boat to side tie up? I don't see the benefit to Annapolis boaters. So maybe Ross can explain that, but I
Yeah.
don't see it.
Well, from my perspective, it is a matter of, again, we're dealing with history and so forth. It's a matter of losing 2, 3, possibly 5 slips on the 6th Street side. I'm not sure they'll lose it entirely, but it'll probably be little runabouts, not cruising boats and that sort of thing. Certainly not like the 3 you see there. In fact, there are 2 small runabouts. I think one of them is a Boston Whaler, and there's another Boston Whaler like. But it's going to be hard to figure out how they skirt into those onshore slips there once the floating dock is in place. So the notion first is to try to keep the number of slips relatively whole, not lose slips. Certainly, there's a lot of pressure on slips, and the demand for slips has driven the slip fees up considerably. And Safe Harbor is certainly one of the marinas I couldn't afford. But so it was a matter of some kind of ability to give equity. Mears is the ones that were violating. Safe Harbor bought the marina. They didn't do it, but they are feeling the effects. So it was really if we could come up with a quid pro quo and try to keep the number of slips constant.
Andy, I think you're the next on my screen somehow.
Yes, sir. I am concerned with the traffic in front of Annapolis Landing Marina circling around for fuel. And the difference between side two slips and straight in slips is significant when it comes to having a boat getting underway or coming in from being underway. And I just think it would be interesting to hear, well, Debbie, I think Debbie probably has more comments than she shared as far as that goes, because that is the epicenter of boating activity in Back Creek. And sometimes there's 10 boats going around in every which direction right at that point.
And during boat show, you also get people anchoring there as well. And they anchor very close to the fuel dock, and the wind changes and they're really close to the fuel dock. And I'm sure Jake can speak to, having vessels come to the fuel dock and needing room to access it. It is a tight spot.
Yeah, very tight.
Alan.
Right out in front of fuel dock as well.
Alan.
I like numbers, so forgive me, it's just a little bit of math, but on Google Maps and then again on our other charting software, we're going from 217 feet from where I can see the navigable lines to 156 feet of width. And that's where a lot of our boats go and play in the summertime, and a lot of our work is done. I think it looks good on the chart here, but as soon as you get summertime, 4 or 5 boats waiting for fuel, and especially during boat show, we don't even go back there anymore. We just ignore it because it already gets tight. But you're going from 213 feet to 156 feet. That's a pretty big change. And my chief concern would be, if history is a judge, what kind of boats are they going to put there and how far are they going to stick out? If they're not respecting the 5-foot line now, then what's to say they would respect it in the future? So that would be my biggest concern, is through no fault of anybody's own, but a dockhand putting a boat there, and now it sticks out 10 more feet. And now you do have a problem.
Yeah. Although I would say that's an enforcement issue that is prevalent, and we can talk to the harbor master about that.
Rick, Mike, I didn't forget you, but you wanted to be last, so I'm going to take Rick next.
Yep. Well, it would be good if actually the picture and then the diagram showed the opposite shore, because yeah, right now there's just a broad stretch of water, so it doesn't look like it's impinging on anything when you move it out. And also, while I appreciate the issue of fairness, if they're losing slips, they're losing slips that I don't know what draft they have, but they're certainly much smaller in exchange for larger slips. So I think they're doing well in this exchange. So you've given me a good suggestion, which is to take my rib and go back up there to really experience it, because it's hard to see from this what the impingement would be. I think Alan's number, though, that's pretty substantial. I wouldn't have guessed it, again, just by looking at this on the diagram. So I guess I'd be moderately against it until I'm better informed.
Mike.
Yeah, so if you scroll down a little bit, Terry, I'll take it kind of in 2 points. Debbie, which is why I wanted Debbie to go first, because I knew that she had this knowledge. What we're basically saying is that if Safe Harbor Marina was built after the reduction from 30% to 25%, a lot of the docks that they have would be in violation of the current harbor line. And that's the intent of the jog. The jog followed the shape of that dock strictly because the dock was already there. It's not following the shoreline, it's following the shape of the dock, because the dock was built and then the need for more navigable waterway reduced it to 25%, and they were already beyond that. So the straight line would be further in, the blue line would be further in if it was built after that legislation passed. And then at the bottom, go down back to 6th Street side, Terry. It seems like there's an easy way to solve access and egress from those 3 or 4 slips that are closest to land, would be just to move the walkway to the 6th Street side of the property instead of having it go out. And then they'd get those slips without having to add larger slips out at the end of C dock or D dock or whatever it is. They could just run the walkway out at the southernmost point, or the southwesternmost point of that marina to that first T head, and then they'd have all that room in that basin to maneuver. They wouldn't have to worry about boats on the 6th Street city project. So I'm inclined to say that, I mean, I'm all for Safe Harbor being to add more amenities for slip holders and to potentially accommodate larger boats. But it seems like this is not an adjustment to a mistake that was made in a harbor line that was drawn years ago, but rather the harbor line had to be there because that dock was already there. And if we drew it correctly, there would be another parallel blue line that would be further into shore if it was drawn the way it was supposed to be drawn. So I'm inclined to make a motion to recommend unfavorably, but does anybody else?
Oh, Andy, did I miss you or did I get you?
Yeah,
I got a comment and thank you.
Okay, so the takeaway I get, and I appreciate Mike's thought too, is what I've heard is what these drawings are missing is two things. One is we don't have a drawing that shows the impact across Spa Creek. We have our own anecdotal recollections of what that area of Spa Creek looks like, that we don't have anything definitive of just where this line adjustment comes into play on the bigger picture. The second thing that this conversation brought to my attention is that there are absolutely no dimensions on any of this. We don't know if this is I mean, you can scale it. You can go down here and scale it, and the scale is whatever. Actually, I don't even know that there's a scale on here. Oh, the scale is 1 inch equals 100 feet, but this is not. We don't know whether this drawing itself is to scale. I think it would be very helpful to me, at least, before I voted either way, would be to have this redrawn, number one, with dimensions on this, and number two, showing the dimensions, including the 5-foot setback that's required, even though it says it's supposed to have a 5-foot setback, but it's showing these finger piers all the way out to the end, to the proposed line. To have this drawing with actual dimensions on it, so we know what's being talked about, and how far out is this moving? Is this moving, 100 feet, or is this moving 30 feet? And secondly, what I just mentioned before was how does this relate to the bigger picture? And come back with an updated drawing that addresses those issues so that we have a much better factual picture of what's going on and not just the anecdotal picture that we all currently have. I know Tom in particular is in and out of there all day long. I have a little less anecdotal observation of tremendous traffic jams, waiting at the fuel dock. Most of the traffic jams waiting at the fuel dock seem to block the access along Port Annapolis, and anybody leaving Javens coming down that part of the access, not the other side. But again, that's just my anecdotal recollection. But my recommendation would be that they literally go back to the drawing board and give us a lot more information than what they've presented here.
can I tell you my observations? And
Always.
yeah, so I think these are great comments, and I find it very helpful. And the first one is showing the full shore-to-shore picture. The second one, Alan's calculations startled me too. I didn't think it was making that big a difference with the extension. And I like what Mike said about there are other ways that the marina can get relief. It'll cost them money, but they can get back some of the slips by just putting the dock out along the 6th Street riparian lines. Yeah, as Mike suggested. So they do have some other forms of relief. And then, as I told you, Alan had somebody rush together these drawings for illustration. It's not what they would be submitting to the port wardens, but I think it's actually not providing the kind of information that either you or the port wardens are going to need. And that's what I'm going to rely on as far as where this legislation goes, if any further. And if it doesn't go any further, we'll just have to deal with the judicial review as it comes.
So Ross, you are the only, are you still the only sponsor on this legislation?
Yes.
So, I guess procedurally, I guess you either withdraw the legislation and have them resubmit, or what's the process so that it comes back to us with enough information to make a decision?
Well, so my proposal to you, should you choose to entertain it, is to postpone any recommendation until you get more complete and accurate information. I will relay this to Alan Hyatt. I'm sure they did not think this was going to happen this quickly. And certainly I was taken by surprise when they put it on port wardens without even letting me know that it was going to be heard. So I think my inclination as sponsor would be to say these illustrations and so forth are really not accurate enough. We don't have the full picture. But I do look the reason we now have um, I'm blanking on your name. um, our fisherman on the ward, newly on the ward, Tom, is because we want people with experience navigating our waters. And so this is all valuable information. If you would entertain postponing a decision, we can get it back on your agenda for September. This isn't going away, and Alan has total control over the judicial review, which our Office of Law is confident he won't win anyway. But he can do what he wants to do. If he wants to come back with a more fulsome picture and more accurate measures, I will certainly entertain that, and we can reschedule with that information for another Maritime Advisory. Is clearly going to have two more port warden hearings. And when I speak to the port wardens next week, I'm going to tell them that the conclusion I've drawn is we need a lot more information before we can make a decision on this.
So Mike, you want to amend your maybe motion to say that we postpone this pending sufficient information to make a decision?
Yeah, I wonder if my concern is that if we say that we might consider adjusting this line, when I think that there are a fair number of us that probably aren't considering adjusting this line,
Yeah, that's fair.
that we're leading them on, right? That the safe harbor is, if they're intent on going through judicial review on the Sixth Street project, and I guess I'm dismayed by that, but I don't think it sways my opinion on this. And it's like I said before, it's why I waited on Debbie to kind of chime in on her knowledge of the harbor lines. If Safe Harbor wanted to rebuild this dock, the D dock, under the current regulations, if they scrap the one that was grandfathered in, would the harbor line revert back to the 25% line, or would they be able to rebuild the dock in a different configuration up to the harbor line that exists now?
Well, again, those are questions, and one of the things we don't have is the blue line or the red line 30% or 25%, because we don't have the bigger drawing showing it across the harbor.
Right.
So the short answer to your question is we don't have the information to know that.
Right.
If the blue line is only 25% of the way across, that might change my mind. If it's 35% across, that's a different issue.
Right, then it becomes clear, but we don't have that. Yeah, so I'm all for a postponement. You want me to make that motion?
I heard that motion made. Is there a second?
A second?
Okay, Frida seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of postponing this and having the alderman who has sponsored it request more detailed information along the lines that we've discussed, and which is now has been recorded, but most importantly, with dimensions, with the full dimensions across the harbor, across Back Creek, and showing the bigger picture at the impact on Back Creek as a whole, as opposed to just this in isolation.
Yep.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All opposed? Andy, were you opposed? Okay.
In favor, in favor.
Oh, okay. Anyone, I can't see all the hands because I've got this screen share. Actually, let me get rid of this screen share, and then I'll get my whole. Now I have my whole picture back. Is there anyone, was there anybody raise their hand opposed? No. Okay, Kimberly, it was the motion passed. Ross, and if you want to, when you talk to Alan, if you want to conference me in, I'm happy to,
Yeah.
share that. I suspect that he or someone from his office will be listening or will listen to this and understand the concerns as well as the, what we've requested by way of a postponement in terms of a lot more information in terms of particularly dimensions and the bigger picture across the harbor line. The other thing I would ask is if there is anyone that does not have the ability to get out on the water and wants to get out on the water and take a look at this area. I think almost everybody on the board has access. I would encourage you to do so. There were things brought up that I hadn't thought about in terms of when I went to look at it across there, and particularly across that blue line area, but also to take a look at the area down along 6th Street. That's not an area that's proposed for adjustment, although the encroachments that are there would lend itself to be maybe when they do a better drawing, come back and straighten that out also. But I would encourage all of us to take a look at, and if anybody needs a ride, let one of us know that that go out on the water a lot.
Or go fishing with Tom. Sounds like you
Or go fishing with Tom. I'm not sure Tom comes out and goes fishing up that direction very often. I suspect he either goes to the fuel dock or he goes out of Back Creek.
Fuel dog. Fuel dog every day.
Yes. All right. One other item, and that's new business. We have typically not met in August, and unless there is some strong feeling to do so, I would entertain a motion to not meet in August, as does the council take off and everybody else, although there are a couple of committees that are meeting. But I'd entertain a motion to not meet in August and resume with our September meeting with certainly with R4, the 09 being back on the agenda, and possibly 021 being back on the agenda.
So moved.
All right, that was Mike. Any second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? We stand adjourned. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, board.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you,
Thank
Terry.
you,
Bye.
Board.